Hello, growth family, and welcome to the Growth Table Co., where we nourish mind, body, and soul. And today we're talking about something that literally changes lives, and that is boundaries. And it's definitely changed mine and is still changing mine for the better. Now, if you've ever felt burned out, resentment towards others, and like you're giving more than you're getting, then this is for you. Today, we're going to be talking about the sign as to why you might need boundaries. Now, I personally did not know what boundaries were as boundaryless. And I personally come from a, a line of my upbringing or childhood and events in my life that has caused me to become on the spectrum of attachment style and anxious preoccupied. So as I continue to create content for you, the attachment style theory will be immersed, and they are not something that defines us. It is just a way to organize traits and personality characteristics that really help us understand ourselves better. And so an anxious, preoccupied person is essentially boundaryless because of the circumstances and upbringing. And then we have fear of abandonment. And that's why we are anxious and always trying to hold on to things, right? Another thing is people pleasing and fear of conflict, right? So we're going to dive into what boundaries are and signs that you might need to begin to set boundaries for yourself. Okay, so what are boundaries? They are invisible lines that define what is okay and not okay for you. If I set boundaries, it is helping someone understand how to treat me. They protect your time, energy, emotions, and your purpose. And the types of boundaries that we can categorize in every area of life: physical, emotional, mental, your time, and spiritual and digital. So even this digital world that we live in, we need to even set boundaries there. Okay? Many of us grew up with programming where if we say no, we are afraid of what people think or that we're selfish, right? And that if you say yes to everything, even to the point of exhaustion, that's showing love. And those are things that there's always a line, right? And it doesn't mean that you don't love the person if you say no, okay? What if I told you that boundaries are actually a sign or act of love? And that starts with you, okay? So it's a sign of love for yourself, and we are able to model that for others, okay? Before we dive into the signs that you need boundaries, the role in self-leadership, the role that boundaries have, is that we cannot lead others if we do not lead ourselves first. And if you're constantly abandoning yourself, this is where boundaries come into place to help you feel more at peace. And that's the goal, right? So if we are living with, like our other podcasts series is on burnout, stress, and overwhelm. And if we're living in that, we have ways to overcome that. And boundaries is a great tool to lead ourselves first so that we can lead others better. Okay. Now, they are not only for toxic relationships or at work or at home. Boundaries are for healthy, whole people. And that is another goal that we are working towards, is to live in peace and to live in wholeness. And boundaries are a great tool for that. It is how you steward your energy, how you manage your own energy, time, and relationships. As a leader or a parent or an entrepreneur or someone who is a volunteer and leading, the health of your leadership comes from the health of your soul first, okay? So this is the role that boundaries will play, and it'll strengthen leading yourself first so that you can lead others better. Now let's dive into the signs. These are really hard questions, so I'm going to take them a little slowly. You might want to get a journal and write them down so that you can reflect on each of these. Number 1, are you chronically tired even after resting? Okay, so if you rest or sleep, your body is physically resting. But if you still feel tired and exhausted, even though you get rest, it's usually due to the signs of burnout, overwhelm, and stress, but also signs that you do not have healthy boundaries for yourself. Do you constantly say yes, and then that costs you your peace? So do you say yes and you don't feel right about it, and then you do something anyway? Okay. This can cause resentment towards people that you lead. So do you feel resentful towards people that you love, that are close to you, or people that you lead? Resentment is often because a boundary is not being expressed. Okay. Do you struggle to say no without feeling guilty? Okay. These are signals and beliefs inside that we struggle to admit that, if we say yes, that is love. Or if we say yes, there will be more productivity. Or if we say yes, we are worth more. So these are things to reflect on. Are you overly available and under-supported? So do you say yes to everything, be available to everyone at home, at work, and where you volunteer or lead a team, right? Do you give more than you are able to hold? If you feel empty or you're under supported and you are not being built up on you don't build yourself up, or you don't have a support system, then you're running on empty and you do not have healthy boundaries in place. Okay? Have you lost sight of your own needs, dreams, or your own voice? Do you feel that you have lost yourself? Okay. Losing yourself, the other podcast, we can be drowning in burnout, overwhelm, and stress. And so with a lack of boundaries, yeah, we're drowning, right? So you have all of these healthy tools, including placing healthy boundaries in order to stay afloat and lead by a healthy example. You can't lead others to clarity if you're drowning in confusion, okay? So these are really great questions to reflect on, and I can put them down below if you'd like to write them down in your journal and reflect. Why it matters to lead yourself first with boundaries. If you don't set the pace and tone for your own life, someone else will. Okay. So if we don't have healthy boundaries in place, then other people are going to influence what how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Okay. And so when you model exhaustion, burnout, and overwhelm, then that's what people are following. And there's a cost, right? That's what the outcome of your leadership is going to be. Now, if you model self-leadership and have boundaries in place, then people will follow your peace, your wholeness, and they will see strength in that, and they will be able to model after you. And leading yourself is not selfish, it's strategic, okay? When you lead with boundaries, you're going to create a ripple effect. Your kids learn self-respect, and your team will lead with clarity and see clarity in your leadership. Okay. Cool. So just like surrendering to start to fix burnout is not a weakness. It's actually a strength where when you surrender and then you allow other people in to help you with the things that you're overwhelmed with, it's not a weakness. You're not quitting. When you start to delegate and let people help you, that is a strength. So just like that, you are also not weak because you need a boundary. It is wise because you are now learning to say yes or no to what is going to protect your peace. So I did not understand what boundaries were, how to create them, how do I embody them, how do I act that out, and what happens when you share the boundary with the person or people that need to understand them. What happens then? What do we do? How do we manage a boundary? And that's what this series is all about, okay? What are boundaries? How do they help? And how does it help us lead others? So I have some really great examples for you of what boundaries look like in personal relationships and in work relationships. So here we go. Okay. Emotional boundary. In a personal relationship, I am not available to be your emotional dumping ground. I care about you, but I need to protect my own peace too. So it's like it's a start to understand how you're going to stand up for yourself when something is causing you to be upset or uncomfortable, and you need to know what to do with that and how to handle it. So again, emotional boundary would look something like, I'm not available to be your emotional dumping ground. I care about you, but I need to protect my own peace too. So what would that be about? It would be about not being able to handle too much negativity from someone, let's say. You have to draw the line yourself and know how much you can take of maybe someone taking out their frustration on you. A time boundary with a personal relationship can look like this. I can't talk late at night anymore. I need that time to rest and recharge. Okay. Now, these are just bringing the boundary up. Later on, we'll dive in really deep on how to have the person, like, what do you do when the person violates after you have communicated, right? These are really hard to do. And so that's why we need these videos. Okay. And in my practice, I actually have tools because we go really deep. Like Growth Table Co. and our one-on-one coaching and workshops, we go really deep, right to childhood, right into the core to pull those weeds up right from the root. And so setting boundaries, we go through the fears and why you are afraid to set a boundary. And trust me, I really needed that, and it's working. It really changes everything. So that's an example of a time boundary. I can't talk late at night anymore. I need that time to rest and recharge. Now, if you have something where you feel like there's a lack of respect, you can say something like, I'm not comfortable with being spoken to that way. If it happens again, I'll need to step away from the conversation. So that's an example more of what you're going to do if they violate, right? And so I'm not comfortable with being spoken to that way. If it happens again, I'll need to step away from the conversation. Space boundary. I need alone time regularly to feel grounded. It doesn't mean I don't love being around you. So someone who needs space and time away from a conflict or conversation or just time in general to themselves, that might be a boundary you need to set just to have alone time to recharge, right? And a digital boundary, please don't share my personal updates or photos without asking me first. So that's a really good one. I'll take this photo, but please don't share it. Or I will ask, is this photo okay to share online? That's with friends and with family and kids too, like everyone, right? Everyone needs to have that respect of privacy. Digital boundary, please don't share my personal updates or photos without asking me first. Okay? So those are really good personal relationship examples. Now, here are some boundaries in work relationships. Availability boundary. I don't respond to emails or messages after 6 p.m. I'll follow up during business hours. So this is huge, especially for leaders in companies, or if you have your own business or small business. We definitely don't put boundaries up of availability, especially at first, right? We burn ourselves out because we feel like we need to build our business, be available, but that's not going to help. You're going to burn out and things are going to suffer for that, right? So I don't respond to emails, work emails or messages after 6 p.m. I'll follow up. Now that's really a great way to communicate. And that's what a boundary is, right? It's showing people how to work with you and your life. And you're saying yes or you're saying no, this is what works and doesn't work. And that's really great communication. I'm happy to support this project, but I can't take any more on than my current role right now. I'm happy to support this project, but I can't take on any more than my current role right now. So how much responsibility can you take? And again, keep saying yes, and you can't take it on, then you need a boundary for yourself, right? And then you probably will cause more success that way for the responsibility to get done by someone else, or maybe change the time frame and say, okay, these are my responsibilities right now. I can't take that on. Maybe I can do that. I can start that next week. So there's different ways that we can manage the boundary. Respect boundary at work. I expect to be spoken to with respect in meetings. I'll remove myself if the conversation becomes disrespectful. Now, this is very scary, right? In a workplace environment to have to speak up like that, but it is very important to speak up for yourself in your workplace if you feel disrespected. And that takes a lot of work, a lot of courage, And that's why we're here to help you with that. Okay. Task management boundary, and that's like the responsibility one, is I can complete this by Friday, but not tomorrow. Let's adjust the deadline or delegate. So you know yourself, you know how much you have, you know how much time you have, you know your responsibilities at home, you know everything that's on your plate. And people at your workplace might not know all of that. They might not know your whole story, right? The big picture, but you do. So you need to set that boundary and say, I can do this, but I'm going to have to start at a later time and finish at a later time. Can we move that deadline over? And work-life balance, that's a good segue into that, right? I won't be attending weekend work events unless it's a part of my contracted responsibilities. So this might not be exactly what you would do or say. It's just an example to say, okay, I attend church on Sundays. I cannot do any work-related responsibilities at that time. These are my priorities on this day type of thing. Or you're something in your work and your life at home that we need to set boundaries on because there's fear involved there, right? Of taking everything on at work, maybe because you feel like you might be disappointing them or that you might lose your job if you don't. These are questions that are really, really important to deal with internally so that your work doesn't suffer, you don't suffer, and people at home don't suffer, right? Like those are really hard, but necessary to set, okay? So yes, now go back to, now it's time for some soul food. I'd like to encourage you to remember that you are not weak because you need boundaries. You can't pour from an empty cup. But when you lead yourself with love and clarity, you fill others because of your overflow. And your soul food challenge for today is, what boundary, if set today, could restore your peace? Thanks for pulling up a chair at the growth table where you can come from where you are, just as you are. Subscribe and like this video. And comment below with what boundary you're working on. And we'll see you in the next one for more nourishment. Bye.